Hello, and welcome to the latest Data Dialogues podcast, brought to you by the Data Vault Innovators community. This is our new feature called Tech Tips, where we unpack a data question for you in 5 minutes or less. This week's Tech Tip is brought to you by Nols Ebersohn and is sponsored by Ignition. Welcome, Nols, and what will you be breaking down for us this week?
Today we're going to talk about business key collision code. Question: is this an accident waiting to happen? No, it's not an accident waiting to happen. It's a solution waiting for you in the wings. It is fundamental tenet to Data Vault. It deals with a particular challenge that may come around, and that is, what if the business keys within your organization is not unique? What if I have several systems capturing, for instance, client information across my enterprise, and they're not integrated and therefore not unique across the enterprise? If we try to force them to use the same business key values, we may cause false integration. But then how do we solve this? And this is where the business key collision code is not an accident, but in fact a solution waiting for you in the wings. So what is the business key collision code? That sounds so strange. Well, it's actually just a small clarification of the existing standard. So in all of the documentation that you will find for Data Vault, you will find that the subsequence or type code are mentioned in the hub business key standards. That is not changing the particular element. It's simply using a different name to clarify its use. Sometimes people were confused with subsequence or type code, but subsequences also appear in satellites. And so to remove that particular confusion, it is now renamed as business key collision code. It helps you to govern, therefore making sure that things occur as they should, on making sure we prevent false integration and ensure proper integration. What is the scenario we're trying to solve here? Here we have two instances of the same application. In the Australian instance, we have Bob being allocated a surrogate key, 123, but in our Singapore instance, we have Lee Chin, which was also given the customer ID of 123. Now, clearly, for the sake of the obvious, these are two different people. So if we try to integrate just on the 123 value, because there is no other business key but our surrogate key, sometimes our surrogate keys do behave like business keys and therefore do qualify as business keys. So what do we try to do here? We can come along and say, if we give it a business key collision code, a qualifier, give it its key domain context, we can essentially specialize that value, and the combination of the business key collision code and the business key is now unique. So this helps us to prevent false integration. Now, what if they are supposed to integrate? Then if they are supposed to integrate, in this case, we have two instances. Our Singaporean and Australian instances are using the same business key value, and we want them to integrate. We just make sure that we don't specialize the business key collision code, because that will clearly break our integration. And so to make sure that it remains consistent, you give it the same business key collision code value. Therefore, the combination remains consistent, and it enforces and helps us to govern when the integration on business keys are supposed to happen or not supposed to happen. And so in both these cases, you can see how we govern both the false integration, prevent that from occurring, and also making sure we don't lose any passive integration that is already apparent in our source systems. There is a couple of traps for young players that you need to be very wary about. Some of the approaches in the past have used a record source. Here's a good example of what record source should look like. If you use the combination of record source and the business key, remember that you will see it from all sorts of different places. What that typically results in is you are breaking, you're invalidating the integration because the combinations force you in breaking the integration as it stands. So the correct way to simply show it is they all share the singular component in business key collision code. Please do not abbreviate your record source to the level of where a business key collision code is used. So it can't do two jobs. It needs to be either an audit item, which shows you exactly where the data originated from, or it needs to be a business key collision code. So let record source be record source, which is then true for the statement. Data is mail because it can only do one thing at a time. And so from that perspective, let the record source be the record source and capture your audit trail, and the business key collision code provides you the governance on how to integrate across your enterprise, even with business keys that have overlapping values, hence business key collision code.
Well, thank you, Nols. That was very interesting and very helpful indeed. To talk more about these subjects, please feel free to reach out on the Data Vault Innovators community. We have data experts like Nols and business leaders at all different stages of their data journey. Search for Data Vault Innovators community in your app store or on LinkedIn and uncover more great data conversations. Thanks for joining.